Okay, welcome. Good to have you here. Let me take care of a little business here. There we go. Beautiful. All right. So before we get started, there we go. Just a couple of little housekeeping bits. If you are an Oasis member, then you can join in. If you're logged in with the Chrome browser, then you'll have a link somewhere on your screen that says join the call. And you're able to ask, can I join in the conversation? And I'll bring you in and we can have a conversation here live in the Satsang. If you are not an Oasis member and you're not logged in with the Chrome browser, you can still participate via chat. If you are a YouTube viewer, you can participate with chat and engage in that way. And finally, for any YouTube viewers, if you are so called, to donate a bit to the production of this satsang, to the holding of this satsang, then there is a donation link in the description below. And of course, for Oasis members, it's included in your Oasis membership. So that's all that. Welcome. Good to have you here. Satsang. Sat is truth. Not a relative truth, relative to your upbringing, relative to your culture, relative to your religion, but an absolute truth. What is the absolute nature of being, within which all religions occur, within which all cultures occur, within which everything comes and goes, appears and disappears? What is the essential truth of being? So that is Sat. Sang, Sangha, S-A-N-G, Sangha, together. To come together and share in these explorations of our divine nature, of the divine nature of life. What a beautiful thing. So it's a beautiful thing to have you here in Satsang. This is my first satsang from the new villa here in Bali. I moved in 2 weeks ago. It's still quite a bit of putting together to do, but I call it the tree house. It sits up in the trees looking out over rice fields, as is common here in Bali. Butterflies flitting about. These strange bees that are carrying around these little caterpillar larvae, I think. So, during our time together, you may hear the roosters. I've got neighbors that are roosters, and they're a beautiful teacher in just allowing the nature of what is unfolding to unfold, and see what kind of stories my conditioning or programming want to make up about roosters. Today, let's explore the stillness of our being. What is the one thing that remains still, remains peaceful, remains open, unwavering in its grace, What is the one thing that remains in its pure grace while the world around us constantly changes, while our emotional bodies constantly change, while our mental narratives constantly change, while our own feelings about ourselves, our thoughts, our conclusions, our judgments, our opinions, while all of that comes and goes and changes, amplifies and then quiets, while all of that is happening, what is the essential stillness within which all of that comes and goes? The one thing that doesn't change, which is our essential nature, the oneness that we all share. The essential nature of happiness, which is contentment. Our words are inadequate, but happiness, love, peace, that we all share. How do we rediscover that? Know that, embodied, to abide that, to accept that as the actual reality of who we are. That's what we're here to explore, to discover. We talk about it in terms of education, educating ourselves as to the different dynamics of ego and spirit and soul and consciousness, how it all plays out, how we get lost, what veils our knowing of our truth, what does that even mean? So we educate with language, with understanding, with concepts, perspectives, metaphors, analogies, helping us see that which we're typically not seeing or understanding. And then with our meditations and our intentions and our inquiries, our self-inquiries, we then take that knowledge and we allow it to point us to the direct experience of that which we have been seeking, which is the self that we already are. As I share today, I invite you to chime in with any questions. That helps to guide us in our conversation. And I'll be jumping back and forth here a little bit over to the YouTube stream to see if any chats are coming through there. And welcome to the people joining through YouTube. Thank you for being here, because every individual awakening, if we consider the temporary character of self as the individual, to awaken beyond that illusion of separation and recognize our wholeness, our oneness in this lifetime, contributes to the awakening of the oneness, so that oneness can know itself in all of its iterations, in all of its presentations as all these different human beings, and well, as everything, frankly. But each awakening, each open heart, to quiet the mind and open the heart, to see beyond the story and the narratives and the illusions and the confusions and the judgments and the opinions, to see beyond all of that and find the stillness and peace and grace of being. To participate in that and to engage in that and to have the courage and the devotion and the fortitude and the discipline and the care to be on this journey, to be on this path that isn't easy. What a beautiful thing. That's devotion to truth, devotion to you, devotion to the true you. So it's an honor and blessing to hold satsang, to hold these conversations. And I invite you to engage in the conversations as we continue. Okay. So let's start off with a couple of perspectives. Drama. We all notice there's a fair amount of drama. We create the drama. Now, there's drama when we are physically threatened, when our lives are physically threatened. We're talking about the standard drama of everyday life in our social engagements and interactions. Where does that come from? Is it inherent in the situation? If it was, then everyone who encountered that situation would feel the exact same drama, and we don't. So where does the drama come from? It comes from taking in the situation and feeding it to our narrative of self, to our sense of self. I'm not enough. I'm not safe. I have to be validated. I have to be respected. I have to get my way. I have to be right. I have to be perfect. I have to be fantastic. All of our ways of thinking that we have to be in order to be okay, in order to be loved, in order to be valuable, acceptable. So think of it this way. Drama occurs when we ask life to provide us with what we haven't learned is already within us. You could just sit with that for a month and marinate on that, and there'd be value in that. Drama occurs when we ask life to provide us with what we haven't learned is already within us. And when I say within us, it means we ask life to provide us with what we already are. The world has to behave in a certain way for me to be happy. The world has to behave in a certain way for me to be at peace. Like I've got roosters, right? So how can I be at peace when there's roosters? Well, that's because if I don't know the essential peace within me that can just be with roosters, then I'm depending on the world to be free of stupid ass roosters so that I can be at peace. Well, good luck with that, especially here in Bali. So drama occurs when we ask life to provide us with what we haven't learned is already our essential nature of being. And most people don't have any idea of their essential nature of being. So they're constantly chasing happiness and peace in an ever-changing and unruly and misbehaving world of events and situations and conditions and relationships. We're here to remember our wholeness so that we're not constantly seeking to be filled from the external world. So that we're free to play in the external world, to create all sorts of events and experiences and relationships, to play in all that, but not to be so attached to that it needs to behave in a particular way in order for us to be okay. That's freedom. To be able to play in the world already knowing your essential wholeness of being. the self prior to your story, the self prior to your conditioning, to your egoic construct, to your sense of identity, to your wounding, conditioning, etc. The essential nature of your being. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. The human experience is temporary. Our being is boundless. I want to say infinite, but language is tricky here. Let's just put it this way. When this body, mind, and the ego self that lives in the mind, when all that ends, you will still exist. And that you doesn't go away just because you're having a body, mind, ego experience. It's just that we get so lost in the body, mind, ego experience. We get lost in the content of experience and we forget our spiritual nature. And when we're disconnected from our divinity, we will feel an emptiness. Look at your own life. Check it out. When we are disconnected from our divinity and we are totally lost in the world of comparing and needing to be accepted, to be lovable, to seeking approval from others, making sure we get it all right, all the ways that the ego plays in order to feel okay about itself. When we're lost in that and we're disconnected from our divinity, our divine nature, we will feel an emptiness. We will feel a sense of not enough. And we won't know why. Why do I feel not enough? It's because we're not abiding, we're not aware of, we're not in the practice of remembering and being and allowing our amazing wholeness. So if we're not pointing our awareness to our divine nature, there's going to be a sense of emptiness. And we're going to try to fulfill that with activities and conditions and situations and relationships and experiences. But you're here, exploring, inquiring. Who am I really? The self, the true self that I'm describing often feels fantastical. It's like, that's weird. That's beyond. That's almost crazy. Like, that's impossible. And yet we believe ourselves to be what we come to recognize in this work. We believe ourselves to be a self that we are making up based on mom and dad and school and media and society and culture and commodity, businesses and all the dynamics that try to tell us who we need to be, who we should be, who it's okay to be, who it's not okay to be. We actually believe that we take that in and we construct an ego identity, and we believe that is real and that the essential nature of our being is some fantastical thing. We've got it all upside down. And I laugh because it's a sublime simplicity when that flips, when you recognize, oh my God, this thing I call me is a made up thing. Ego is not an actual thing. It's not a physical thing. You can't find it. Like you can find your kidney, you can find your liver, you can find your heart. You cannot find your ego because it is activity of mind. Beautiful. So Henry, we'll bring you in to have a little conversation in just a little bit. Henry says, I have a bit of reflection on how being has enriched my relationships in my life. Henry and I have been conversing about this for 10 years, at least. And it takes about 10 years, 5 to 10 years of study and contemplation and devotion and discipline, more study, more practice, more patience, to awaken from the pernicious dream of self that has been so dominant for so long. So yeah, Henry, I'll bring you in just a little bit. We can have that conversation. So we take ourselves to be the personal self, the individual idea of self that we've built in our mind. And that inherently is going to feel small, disconnected, separate, fragile, vulnerable. It needs its way. It needs things to happen in a particular way in order to be happy, because it doesn't know that your essential nature is already happiness. So, the stillness of being. I hear a bird twittering outside, and I hear the roosters. The call of the rooster suddenly erupts, suddenly is present, and then it stops. The sound of the birds twittering out in the rice fields. They arrive, they show up, they're present for a little bit, and then they stop. If I ring my crystal bowl or a bell and the sound resonates, it lasts for a little while. It's suddenly there. I ring the bell, bong, and it bong, and it resonates, and then it subsides. The silence remains. We call it silence, and it's not quite the right word. We think of silence as the absence of sound. Silence is actually the fabric of reality into which all sound appears and disappears. So even when the sound is present, the silence is there. It doesn't go away. It just holds space for the sound to be present. And when the sound fades, it remains. The surface of a pond is still. You drop a pebble into it and it ripples up at the surface, but down beneath that surface, the pond remains in stillness. And that slight ripple, which is temporary, subsides, and then the surface matches the depth of the pond. The stillness of our being is present at all times, allowing activity to arise and pass, arising experiences to come and go, allowing emotions to be felt and witnessed. So we don't get lost in them. We remain as the witness and experience them, but remaining as the witness of the experience allows us to have the experience and not get lost in it and forget our witnessing quality, capacity, essence. Allowing is not an activity of mind. Allowing is the very nature of our being, the stillness of our being. The movie screen allows whatever movie plays upon it. The sky allows whatever weather pattern comes and goes. The essential stillness of our being allows all experience. And the sky doesn't think it's going to be destroyed by a hurricane. And the movie screen doesn't think it's going to be destroyed by a movie of a forest fire. And our essential nature of being recognizes that even with great difficulty in life, which is present in our relationships, in our conditions, in our situations, that there's an essential nature of our being that is safe. Whole. Rested in grace. Rested as grace. It's a stunning thing. To know the self beyond our own mind's dramas. And you start to see it so clearly. Those who are so lost in their personal story, how easily they can be frightened and hurt, and, wronged. And the reaction from fear, from a sense of smallness, from a sense of separateness, to take it all so personally and then react in defense, making others wrong, hurting others. Hurt people tend to want to hurt people. And you see all the ways that humans can go to war with the world, with others in their lives, with the situations in their lives, and create far more drama than there really needs to be. So stillness is the ultimate witness of all activity. Can you find your own stillness? By stopping and intentionally going to the breath and allowing yourself to feel the movement of breath in and out of your body. And just be. What's there? And then your mind will interrupt with thoughts, and the thoughts are like the rock in the pond. They create ripples for a little bit. And if you just drop down beneath the thoughts and let them be, drop down beneath the thoughts, you find the stillness of the pond. You find the stillness of being. And you realize it's always there. Of course it is. It's your essential nature. It can't come and go. And when we abide that, when we recognize that as self, oh, that peace that I sometimes feel like I, quote, tap into, it isn't an experience that comes and goes. It's the essential nature of my being. It is me. My true grace. The movie screen behind the movie. And when we abide that again and again and again and again and again and again, a trust is developed, a faith, a knowing of reality, so that is present in the background of all experience. Typically, we're just having the human experience. We're so lost in it. And then through the witnessing, the recognizing of the movie screen, recognizing of the awareness that we truly are, witnessing our own mind, witnessing our own emotions, witnessing our activated conditioning or reactions, feelings, thinking, we find that we are the witness of these things that come and go. And for a while, we're the witnesses known briefly, and we're back in the story. And then we remember, and we go to our breath, and we use our different practices and analogies and inquiries to remember the truth of our being. Oh, there I am. Oh, that's right. Oh, God, my mind. Ooh, boy, I was so lost in my story. Oh, and my emotions. Look at the storm going on. I was getting so lost in that, and I can witness it as the peace of being. And then we get lost again, and then we remember, and then we get lost, and then we remember. And then after a while, we start to find that we're having all these experiences, and this peace of being just remains present. But it's still kind of in the background. So I can feel a frustration with something. I'm having renovations done in the villa here in Bali, and there's frustrations at times with things being done incorrectly or without much thought at times. And I get frustrated. The other day, I was sitting on the ground. Something happened. I just fell back on my back, and I was like, I'm done. I can't stay here anymore. I just want to go home. I want to go home where things are typically done a little bit more right. And I felt this exasperation and defeat. I felt completely defeated. And it was so beautiful to allow that, to feel that, and not get so lost in it. And there was actually a peace behind it. The two were present at the same time. The sky allowing the weather. There was a storm present. And I was the sky witnessing the storm, knowing the storm would pass. But it wasn't just cognitive. It was the felt experience of just being with the human experience. But then after a while, what happens is, turn my hand this way, this is the life experience, and this is the being, the witness. Instead of being in the background, it starts to pervade all experience. That's what we're talking in Henry in a moment. This has been his experience. It pervades. So it's freedom. We can just have all manner of experiences and feel them and say yes or no to relationships, experiences, situations. We set boundaries. We do our best to change a situation if it's unpleasant, but not, I need to change it and so I can come back to peace. I need to change it because I'd rather it not be present there, but my peace is not dependent on this thing changing. That's freedom. I hope this makes sense. And I invite your questions and inquiries and thoughts and direct experiences. Let me jump over to YouTube real quick. Okay. So if there's any questions, comments, please feel free to share those in the chat. Or if you're on the Chrome browser as a Oasis member, you can go ahead and ask for to join the call. If there are chats within YouTube, I'm not seeing them. So that could be a technical thing that I still need to figure out on my end. Henry, did you want to jump in here and share some of your reflections? Pranjal, some conditioning comes back right after reflection. Why? I love this question. Some conditioning comes back right, like he put capitalized, right after reflection. Why? There's patience in this. Remember, 5 to 10 years here. It's the only self you've ever known. You're basically asking the ego body that's always been in charge, making choices and feeling what it feels in order to fulfill its emptiness. And you're saying to that ego body, we're going to listen to something else. We're going to listen to this thing that I'm reflecting on, this sense of true self. And we're going to let that be more dominant. We're going to let that self that is letting down its defenses, that isn't running a story, that isn't constantly projecting its needs because it's already fulfilled. And we're going to let that run the show. And the ego body freaks out. It says, the hell you are, because what about me? How am I going to get all my needs met? And as long as we identify with that as self, as long as we buy it, as long as we entertain that habitual narrative and reaction, then it'll come again and again and again. It'll say, I get juice. Every time I show up, I get juice. I get believed in. A consistently unbelieved thought or narrative will lose its power over time. So when it happens, and it will, and it does, the individual self, the conditioning, comes back right after a sense of reflection of who am I really. When it does, witness it. Name it. Oh, there's my mind. How do I know it's my mind? Because it doesn't feel good. My wholeness of being always feels at peace. Do I feel at peace? No. Then I'm in my story and I'm believing it. And I would invite, be curious, be playful, laugh at it. Oh my God. I was just feeling my absolute essential nature. And then, whoop, here, just laugh at it. Go, oh my God, this is stunning. And then ask the question, what is aware of this? Be more interested in the awareness than the experience. The experience comes and goes. The experience keeps changing. The awareness does not. And this is Pranjal. There's a good chance that, like most anybody on this path, you've only been on this path a year or so, you still believe yourself to be who you're not. You still believe yourself to be your thoughts, your emotional experiences. Those are coming and going, arising and passing within the stillness of awareness that you are. Pranjal, I ask you to find yourself. See if you can find this thing you call Pranjal. See if you can find it. It's a good inquiry to sit with. Can you find this thing called Pranjal? Pranjal immediately answered, no, I can't. That's right, you can't. You can't. It's activity of mind. Once you really get that and accept that, it disempowers it. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. While the wizard's behind the curtain, it's all powerful. That's like the ego. It's all powerful. It's scary. It's strong. It's threatening. And then at some point you pull the curtain back and you see this is the little guy pulling levers. And you realize, oh my God, that's what I've been scared of. When you see your own sense of identity as what it is, a construct of mind based on mom and dad and culture and layering upon layering upon layering of illusions of a sense of self-separation. Once you see it for what it is consistently, it loses its power. If you're watching a movie and it's a really scary movie and you're in it, right? You're totally engrossed in it. Yeah, you're scared. No, don't open the door. No, don't open the. Oh God. Oh no, don't open. You know, you're scared. You're involved. You're engaged, and it's the entertainment of the movie. But if you got to the point where you're like, I don't like feeling this, and you simply stopped and went, oh my God, it's a movie, and looked around the movie theater and realized, oh, I'm in a movie theater. Oh, that's right, I'm in a movie theater. Oh, this is just a. It's just a movie. It's just a movie. What happens to the fear? Gone. Gone. Because you saw through the illusion and you saw the reality that it's just a movie. You need to see the reality that all of these things that disturb you are constructs of mind. And then ask yourself the question, what is the one thing that doesn't change? This peaceful stillness of being that I find in my meditations, when I find just walking through my day, when I choose to remember, wait, well, what's really going on here? There's the outside world, there's my story about it, there's my emotional reaction, and behind all of that, there is a still awareness, a witness of all of it. And I am that. Whenever we remember our truth, it's a bit of awakening, and then a bit of awakening, a bit of awakening, another bit of awakening, until it holds. So your question, why does it come back? Simply because you're still waking up, and you still believe it when it occurs. You still fear it. You want it to go away. You kind of get, I'm guessing, Pranjal, you get angry at it. You're something about it is like, there it is. Why does it come back? As soon as you do that, you're believing in it. You're giving it power. Look at it, witness it. It has no substance. Marvel at it. Oh my God, check out my shit. That's stunning. It's just stunning. Yeah. Okay. Pranjal, thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Pranjal, thank you, man. Thank you. You're doing the work. You're paying attention. That's what it takes. All right. All right, Henry. There we go. Oh, perfect timing.
Thanks, Josh.
Hello, Henry. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too. Can you hear me okay?
It's a little bit low on the volume, but let me see if I can. Let me see if I can do something.
My speaking my microphone real quick.
I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Hold on one second.
It might be on my end. Yeah, technology. All right. Just speak up a little bit, maybe, and I'll hear you. Okay, now I'm really not hearing you. Much better. There we go.
Okay, I turned up my microphone a little bit.
I got you. Oh, good. Now I can hear you beautifully.
Perfect. So, it's hard to believe I'm on 11 years working with you. Doesn't feel like 11 years. It's gone by so quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one thing I just wanted to touch on what Pranjal was asking and what you were mentioning just before I dive into what I was going to say. I've been doing this work with you almost 11 years now, coming up on 11 years, and I still have moments when, it's not as loud as it used to be, the voice, like the
by no means. Yeah, I know where we started, man.
I didn't know where it started, but 10 years in, I still have time where it's like a split second where it just had. I'm like, but I don't give it power anymore. I'm not getting angry. I'm not like, oh, there's that stupid thing again. It's like it's more of like, oh, there it is, and I just kind of observe it and let it go.
That's it.
I'm not listening to it anymore. It doesn't have power over me, and I don't give it that power.
What you're pointing to, Henry, is the misperception a lot of people have is that I will be free when all of that stops.
Yeah.
No, it'll diminish and it'll quiet down when you stop engaging it. You've heard me use the analogy of the pond and the ripples. Mm-hmm. When we're like, it's got to stop. It's like taking our hands and trying to smooth out the ripples on the pond. Yeah. Why isn't it stopping? Why isn't it stopping? I'm trying to smooth out the ripples. Yeah. So it's hands off.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what I want to touch on briefly here is kind of how living my truth as love has really enriched my relationships, especially with my family. And pardon me if I get a bit emotional here. This year was especially beautiful. So I spent the holidays with my older brother and his family. 2 little kids. There were 10 of us total. And one of the things I realized when I'm around people, when I'm around them, I see how, I see the life they're living and I see how great they're doing for themselves. And I used to be that proud of them, but I was also constantly comparing myself and saying, I am not good enough because I have not achieved what they have achieved. And this year I was up there and before I went out, my older brother told me like, hey, like, I know it gets overwhelming, overstimulating, and you get kind of frustrated sometimes. Therefore, Harry and Susan, the in-laws, offered to let you stay at their house for 3 nights if need be. And a couple of years ago, just that notion, while I know while he totally meant well, I would have used it as here's another reason to point to why my ego self and comparison is so valid. Because if he sees that I need this, then something must be wrong with me.
Right. There's an inadequacy that needs to be solved before I can be worthy again.
Exactly. And what I've noticed, I'm noticing it more and more, and it just gets stronger and stronger, is that when I went up there this year and I was there for 5 days, and I remember Christmas morning, my niece and nephew come running in, and I'm the one sleeping on the couch in the room with the Christmas tree because there wasn't enough bed. So of course I'm the first one they wake up. But what I've really noticed is that this whole experience, this whole trip, I really realized that it was just kind of a reminder. I was talking to them about how I'm proud of them, and I tell my twin brother and tell him about what I've been doing. And what I loved about it was that I am really not just content with my path. Is that it's more of content isn't the right word, but it's like I no longer have a I'm no longer looking through it as a lens of like, okay, this is where I'm at, but I need to be here.
Yeah.
It's become, I'm not comparing myself. I'm not saying I need to be here now and be here tomorrow. It's like we talked about, it's like the path is constantly changing. One day it could be on path, you go around the corner, and next thing you know, it's a little bit different. But the point I'm trying to get at here is I've realized that my relationship with my family and with myself had become so much more vibrant and so much more meaningful since I stopped letting my old story dictate how I interact with the world.
Before you used to be in relationship with your story.
Yeah.
Now you're in relationship with others because you see your story as mostly irrelevant to who you are.
Yeah. And and one thing I also realized, and this was really in the past week, so Lisa reached out to me this week after several years of nothing. Just
Oh, Lisa, so your ex-girlfriend reached out to you. Yes.
Reached out to me. And had that happened a year ago, I would have been like completely thrown. I would have been like lost in like all the like, oh man, like it couldn't come back. It this and that. And I am realizing that I didn't really feel anything. I just asked what she needs to know, what was up, and I responded in kind. But one of the things I'm realizing about myself is that I have begun to experience a level of self-love where is it nice to have a relationship with somebody? Absolutely. I'm not denying that.
Yeah, it is nice to be with somebody sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But what I've come to realize, and this is really an interesting thing for me, is that I'm also very much happy just being with myself. I'm not needing an external relationship with somebody else to love myself.
So then, Henry, what would happen if you now bring this, Henry, this knowing of your being, the sourcing of love from within, being able to source love from within, if that man now enters into relationship, how does that change the relationship?
I think for me, it makes the relationship it makes me less dependent on that relationship, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense.
Which in turn, makes me able to really enjoy that person, being with that person more. Like I'm not worried about like, are they going to end? Am I good enough for this person? Am I good enough for me?
Is it their job to validate your sense of worthiness?
Oh, not at all. No, because I don't need their validation to know that I'm worthy. Because I already am.
And if you did need their validation, then when they're validating you, everything's hunky dory, right?
Yeah, but if I did need it, then the moment it stops, then it's all of a sudden not hunky dory.
They can't today. They've got another thing going on. They've got their own thing going on. They don't like you a whole lot right now. You just had an argument, and they're not all that enthralled with you right now. They're not validating you today, or maybe this week.
Yeah,
and so resentment builds up, right?
Yeah, and so I'm just finding it really powerful and empowering. Really, I think a better word for it. To to be able to be in that position where I'm like, I can be on great terms with somebody or maybe be having a bit of a conflict, but I'm always okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Because that love comes from within. I'm not relying on their validation and their support and their love to be able to feel like I matter.
And can you, Henry, from that perspective of knowing that you're okay, sourcing your sense of wholeness from within, can you then allow more readily to feel sadness, pain, grief,
Yeah.
confusion,
And
disappointment?
absolutely. I mean, that basically what happened when my ex reached out to me. I filled with a lot of emotions. I was
Yeah.
a little bit. Part of me was confused. Part of me was a little sad because I kind of gotten out of my mind. Part of me was a little bit happy. Oh, maybe he's still part of my life. Maybe it's just whatever it may be. But I'm not. It was just a matter of like I noticed these emotions coming to the surface and existing, but not dictating what rabbit hole I dip my toe into, if any.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Henry, in our time together to watch this taking responsibility for yourself.
Yeah.
Early in the work, I would have said, yeah, but what about you? And you would have been like, yeah, but no, I'm trying to tell you, then she did this and then she did that. And then she did, so we tend to villainize others. We tend to judge them harshly. We need to make them wrong so that we can be okay. We do all of that, and there's not a whole lot of love in any of that.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, no, I'm trying to justify, why I feel these things and make the other person wrong. And now when you and I work together, it's just immediate. You're just consistently just returning to your truth.
Yeah.
Because it's so alive, it's so awakened. You're living an awakened life. The truth of your being is awakened. You're awake to it, and as that, you live more as that.
And I've also in being as such, I'm able to live life guided by my truth.
Yes, not guided by your fears and your self-loathing.
Yeah, that's just kind of what I want to touch on. Being able to be guided by my truth and live life as love and as truth has been one of the most profound, life-changing experiences I've ever had and probably ever will have.
Yeah. Early in our work, I would use the phrase, "What would love do?" And it was more conceptual. Well, and kind of we hear that as, what would the loving thing to do be? What if you acted more lovingly, what would you do? And that really was never the question. The true question was, what would actual love do? Can you tap into the love that you are and then follow that guidance?
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing now.
Yeah. So, thank you for that, Seth. I know I put in a lot of work on my end, but like without your teaching and guidance, I don't think I would have been able to do that. So I appreciate everything you've done and all the work we've done together, and I continue going forward on this thing.
Yeah. A mountain guide can teach somebody mountaineering, but it's up to the climber to actually put one foot in front of the other and do the hard work and climb the mountain.
Yeah.
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 Beautiful. Thank you, Henry. I appreciate you, my friend.
I appreciate you too. All right. I'll leave this open to the next person now.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
I can do it from my end too.
Henry, friend is. All right, hold on. I don't know if it's me or you that exits you. I think it's you.
I'll do it.
Okay. Right on. So what questions arise for anybody around this remembering and forgetting and remembering and forgetting? Not recognizing our egoic stories and narratives and reactions and triggers. And not believing that our freedom exists only when those stop. Our freedom exists in the abidance, in the recognition that we are the stillness of being in the background of all experience. And whether you find that stillness of being in a meditation or time in nature or in kirtan or an ecstatic dance or in creative expression, when you find that grace of being, it's important to not call it an experience, but to name it as what it is, which is I. Oh, there I am. Oh, there I am. I got out of my head. I got out of my stories. I got out of my narrative. I woke up from the dream of my egoic identity long enough to recognize, oh, there I am. It's important to name truth, to name this piece as self and not just as a passing experience. The passing experience is the confusion. The passing experience is the thought pattern, the belief system. The story is the passing experience. Okay. So I want to take a little bit of time here, unless you have questions that you want to bring into the conversation. I want to touch on the concept of time and what we call the moment and what we call the past. What we call the past is our narrative about an event or a situation or condition or relationship. It's no different than the present, where a situation occurs. We bring it into our story, typically, unless we're in a more awakened state or an awakened truth of being, then we just receive every moment as the love that we are. But when we're not doing that, we're receiving the moment into our conditioned storyline, our narrative, our database. And then we are determining what is happening based on that filter. So you may have heard the phrase, the world is not as it is as we are. We see the world as, depending on our level of conditioning, programming, wounding, storyline, how adamantly we believe that we are the personal self. So the moment is colored by the depth of our dream, the depth of our narrative, the strength of our narrative, the persistence of our narrative. That will determine our experience and our story. Well, the same is true in the past. The past is we're just remembering our narrative, our filtering, our storyline that we laid down as gospel, as truth. The past is a collection of memories that we constructed and never questioned. So if you want to heal your past, rest in your wholeness, rest in your love, rest in your own grace of being. And only then, when you are feeling truly rested as your wholeness, you can invite your, quote, past, which is just a memory, to move forward into the embrace of loving awareness. You can let that past experience, which is a memory, of how you narrated or experienced that experience at the time, you can bring that forward so that it can be met with your rested grace of love. Love heals. Bring the wound forward into the healing love or the healing light of love. Whenever we say, I'm going to go back to the past, we're not going anywhere. We're staying present in the one now, the ever-present now. We can't not be in the now. So when we say, I'm going to go back to the past and do some work on my past, you're staying present now and bringing forward your memories in the way that they were laid down, in the ways that they were formulated at the time when you didn't know who you really are. When you were feeling so incredibly raw and fragile and vulnerable and uncertain and doubting, and the experience contributed to your sense of self-doubt or contributed to your emerging story that you're constructing about yourself. Let the now, which is all there ever is and all that ever has been, let the now be met with the open heart of grace, with your abidance of the stillness of being. Let the now be met with your stillness of being. And that includes your thoughts, your beliefs, your storylines, your emotions. Let everything that arises in the now be met with your stillness of being. If you're an Oasis member, you have access to the Living Beyond the Noise course. It's pretty much got everything you need in that course. It's got years worth of study in one course. Allow yourself to move through the course with patience. Marinating on what is revealed within the course, within the lessons. And wake up from the pernicious dream of the personal identity. You are not who you think you are. Literally, you are not who you think you are. I think I'm okay. I think I'm worthy. I think I'm unlovable. I think I'm lovable. These are all thoughts. They're not reality. They may reflect reality, but they themselves are not reality. They are thoughts, beliefs. Follow your breath into the heart. Imagine that it is your heart that is breathing. Dropping down out of the pernicious narrative of your own mind. Dropping down out of the waves at the surface of the ocean. Whether they be chaotic or calm, but dropping down into ever widening circles of being. Being that witnesses all thoughts, all beliefs. Everything that comes and goes, arises and passes, is born and dies. Arises into and from the stillness of being. The stillness doesn't go away. We just get lost in the content of experience. And the invitation here is to let all experience get lost within the presence of conscious awareness. So instead of you getting lost in all the content of experience, all experience comes into and moves through and gets lost in you. So before we wrap up here, any other thoughts, questions, reflections? All right, my friends. Blessings. Just be what you already are. Drama occurs when we ask life to provide us with what we already are. The essential nature of our being, the spiritual nature of our being, is free of the personal identity, which is temporary and a construct of the mind. So just be. Nowhere to go, nothing really to do. except point your awareness with your inquiries, with your studies, with your intentions. Point the awareness to the stillness of your own being. All right, blessings, my friends. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Satsang will be Wednesday next time. If you're an Oasis member, that'll get posted in the next couple of days. If you're joining on YouTube, just keep an eye out for the live call announcement. And be well.